Was the Bible copied from ancient texts by Billy Carson?
Because religion puts you in a box, and the box has a cap on it, and it only lets you go to the top of that box. And if you get to the top of that box, you're going to hit your head. After hitting your head so many times, you don't even jump to the top of the box anymore. You just stay down here. And once that happens, you pass it on from generation to generation. And then we have generations and generations of people over eons that are mentally incapacitated because of the religious virus that goes out. Spirituality is the key. Spirituality will give you enlightenment, will open your eyes to see things in different ways. It will give you inspiration, motivation, aspirations. It will allow you to be your true honored self. It will allow you to grow to be the person you truly can be. It will allow you to be born again many times, not by dumping water over your head in a pool or having somebody smash your head into the ocean. That's not being born again. That's not a baptism. The baptism is the baptism of consciousness. When you finally awaken to the point where you grow consciously to a higher level and you can look back at your previous level and look down on it and realize where you came from, you have just realized you've been born again. And you'll be born again many times in one lifetime if you continue to study, practice, work, and ascend. You see? This is what being born again is all about. Not having some pastor or some clergyman take your baby and douse them in this water, and all this other kind of crazy stuff. That's not doing anything. Oh, you know what that's doing? They're putting H2O, which is a molecule, all over your baby, and that water might have some bacteria in it. Give your baby a doggone flu. The best thing you can do is teach your kid from the time it's little all the way up to be a free thinker, to ask questions, and to follow spirituality. Then you won't have to worry about dumping your baby's head in that water. Now, let's take a look at some text. Sumerian Tablets versus Bible parallels, okay? You can see this Bible here in the background. You see the Sumerian Tablets. Like I said, there's so much here. I'm going to do it in stages because there's just so much. And I don't have a lot of time tonight because I have so much stuff that I'm working on. I got a long night ahead of me. And but however, how does the ancient Sumerians' religion differ from the Bible? Sumerian civilization was founded around 4500 BCE, before the current era, right? They wrote down their history on clay tablets, but the stories themselves were likely much older and passed down from generation to generation. We know this now for a fact because we found tablets that we thought were like the oldest. And then we kept looking and looking, and we found even older tablets with the same exact story on it. So these stories are actually tens of thousands of years old, not just 6,000 years old, right? So we're talking about a real ancient time. Another thing for me to point out is that the Sumerian civilization records start on average around 6,000 years ago, which is where the Bible got the 6,000 year creation story from. In other words, the Bible or religious zealots believe that the earth is only 6,000 years old. And the reason why is because it's plagiarized from Sumerian tablets, and the Sumerian tablets dated around 6,000 years ago. So to them, in their mind, there could be nothing older than that. And then that got passed down from generation to generation. You see how this religious virus keeps getting spread to the point where you develop an ignorance. Yes, the earth is older than 6,000 years, and you hear all these crazy things like dinosaurs didn't exist and all this kind of crazy stuff. I mean, this is why the aliens don't talk to us. The Sumerian civilization was founded. So the Sumerian history is about 5,000 years older than the Bible. The first written form of the Torah or the Old Testament of the Bible was not written until somewhere between 1,000 and 900 BCE. And so we look at one of the oldest parts or some of the oldest parts of the Torah, which ended up becoming part of the canonized Bible. Not exactly word for word, but most of it. Because the Jewish people believe in the Torah. The Jewish people don't believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and that the Messiah has not returned, in case you didn't know. The Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and they believe that the Messiah has not been here, has not come yet. In other words, the prophecy has not been fulfilled yet. And in the Old Testament, majority of that, not all of it, but a lot of it comes from the Torah. And the Torah copied their information from where? Sumerian Tablets. So the Sumerians, excuse me, the Sumerians were polytheists. Polytheism is a belief that worships many gods as opposed to monotheism, which is a belief in a one God system. And so we know for a fact that the Sumerians, the ancient Egyptians, and many other cultures around the world who had their information plagiarized into the canonized Bible were polytheists. They believed in a multiple God system, whereas in Christianity, it became the one God system. Now, there was a situation that happened in Egypt a very long time ago. Pharaoh Akhenaten. Pharaoh Akhenaten is King Tut's father. And so Nefertiti's husband. Nefertiti was King Tut's stepmother, wasn't really his birth mother. Never could really find out what happened to King Tut's actual mom, but I keep looking and looking and looking. But either way, Akhenaten had began to worship Amun-Ra. Now, Amen told him, listen, there's only one God but me. I want nobody worshiping any of these other gods who actually were his relatives. These are the Anunnaki Atlantean people that were ruling over the lands all over the world. The Atlantean civilization was a global civilization. And he said, you know what? I want you, and I'm going to take this down for a second while I'm talking. He says, you know what? I want you to begin to force everyone to worship me and give thanks to me. Okay, this is Amun-Ra. And so Akhenaten is like, well, what will you have me do, my lord? And so he says, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to begin to deface any of the gods that you find around any of the kingdoms. And so if you go to Egypt, like I just took a whole team of 70 people, a crew of 70 people with me to Egypt in October last year. I played the highlight video here many, many times. It was a great, great tour. I was the tour guide there. Everywhere we went, what did we see? The faces and the bodies of the ancient Egyptian gods chiseled away. Under the order of who? Pharaoh Akhenaten. The beginning of the monotheistic era that he was trying to usher in, and he had amassed a huge following of people that were on board with him. This is where the Bible stole the information for the mass exodus. So Akhenaten then eventually pisses off a lot of people throughout Egypt. A lot of these other polytricksters and other big name people were like, we got to get this guy the heck out of here. They force him out. And when he leaves, he takes with him a huge mass following of people. That was the exodus out of Egypt. Why did the new Pharaoh chase him down, or the new king who was temporarily put in charge chase him down? Well, because he had taken the Ark of the Covenant out of the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid at Giza. And that was part of their power source. When he crossed the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, he crossed the Sea of Reeds, a much smaller, easier to cross, and closer sea. That's where the water came crushing back. Now, when you read into the geological studies and look at that region like I've done on the planet, you'll discover that we can do a geological rewind of that area. And when you do a geological rewind based on computer simulation, we discover that there, around that same time frame, there was actually a massive tsunami in that region. What does a tsunami do? It sucks all the water out into dry land. And then what happens when a little while later, the water comes crashing back? Yeah, and so that is the story. So Moses, in my personal opinion, most likely was Pharaoh Akhenaten, who took the people with him. There were no slaves in Egypt. Let me repeat this again. Not slaves of people's homes, but slaves building pyramids. Let me rephrase that. There were no slaves building the pyramids in Egypt. We know this for a fact because the temples in the Giza Plateau region, we found all the actual tablets in there that talk about the workers. It talks about how much they were paid, and it talks about their medical benefits. It talks about arms that were broken, legs that were broken, people that needed medical help, medical assistance. You don't do that for slaves. You don't pay slaves. These people were not slaves, okay? They were not slaves. So,
full video and playlist linked below. Spiritual News Television, AA Creation 9